Good everyone, my name is Navneet Anand from Voice Aajkal, local and global. Today, from Sydney to Launceston to meet somebody special who has been there in the education industry for a while, Sohel Rana from Australian Federation College in Launceston. It's a small town, but wonderful, peaceful, and what I could say, a perfect place to live if you really want to have a quality life. Sohelji, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, sir. It's much appreciated the fact that you've actually made this trip from Sydney to Launceston, probably one of the best places in Australia.
Absolutely.
Lovely to meet you, finally. And I hope that Launceston hasn't disappointed you.
No, absolutely not. I think it has shown me value more than what I expected.
Right.
The number of cars on the street, I was thinking it would be dead.
Right.
No, I could see the traffic.
Right.
I could see people from various nationalities walking on the streets.
Yeah.
Tell us something about AFC.
Australian Federation College, which is the short name of that is AFC that you're referring to. We are a newly registered CRICOS RTO. In fact, you might be quite happy to know that we are in Launceston, in the great city of Launceston. We are the only privately owned CRICOS provider in here. We have been granted with the registration in June last year, but due to the pandemic and all these things, we sort of took it slightly slower than what we have initially anticipated. But then, yes, we have started since last term, and it has been truly wonderful. Basically, the responses and so on and so forth that we are actually getting.
Looking at the cities like Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth.
Yep.
Why Launceston?
To me, I think this is probably one of the best places in terms of living, in terms of building a future for particularly the reason that we actually exist because of our students. I mean, as you can see that it is a small city, but
not that small.
Not that small, but then saying that the growth that this particular city is actually going through. I mean, I personally have been living here for the best part of 8 months now, and just to basically tell you is that when I have initially moved here. And I've actually moved with my family, and initially we planned to stay here for roughly about 2 to 3 years. But then in 8 months, basically it took us, for me and my family, it took us roughly about 2 months to make the decision that, look, we're actually never going back to anywhere. And this is actually coming from someone. I've been living in Sydney for the best part of 20 years. And Launceston took roughly about only 2 months to convince that this is the place that we want to be because of the quality of life, because of the opportunities that Launceston actually has to offer. If you look at all the statistics, I mean, for instance, when we started looking at setting up a school, obviously we looked at many different places. We looked at Darwin, we looked at, as far as Darwin, we looked at, and these are all wonderful cities. Adelaide, we looked at Hobart and all these things, but then the more research that we have done, in terms of the city and in terms of the future prospect of jobs, of career, of quality of life. At the end of the research that we personally did for about 6 months, we had no doubt that setting up a school in Launceston is definitely going to be the best place.
What I was thinking is, living for 20 years in Sydney,
Yep.
this could be a home away from home, but
It is,
looks like that this is going to be your home.
It is. It already has been.
Talking about the quality of life,
Yep.
what difference do you see between metropolitans and a city like Launceston?
Okay, thank you. I think this is a great question that you have asked. For instance, in terms of quality of life, look, different people goes through different stages in their life, right? And one of the Sydney as I said, I've moved to Sydney when I was quite young. Basically, I finished year 12 back home and then came to Sydney. So this is actually coming from one of that person, and I know actually Sydney much better than the place that I've originally I was born in. And still saying that when we moved into Launceston, the quality of life that I'm talking about, in Sydney, for instance, me and my wife, we spend roughly about 4 hours a day on commuting to and from work, sitting on the traffic, being grudgy and grumpy with the traffics and all these things. And this is one great benefit that you actually have living in Launceston. This place, literally, you can go from 10 to 15 minutes to most of the places that you want to go. So you intend to come to school, you're hardly, most of the time, you're probably going to be living or working in about 10-15 minutes away. If you're lucky, possibly you're living 5 minutes away. So it saves you a lot of time. I think, as I said, it's a growing city, and the reason that I'm actually saying this, because I personally, like probably most of us, came here as a student. As you said earlier, that I have been involved in the education industry for more than 10-12 years, and I've actually trained to so many different people's taking so many different classes.
So
and
training
the trainers and training the students. And one of the things that I've always said to the people that I come across, I said, look, being migrant shows one of the greatest thing is that it's not easy. For instance, when you come from a place like India, Bangladesh, or wherever on the other side of the planet, it takes an enormous sense of courage for you to be able to leave your family behind, to be able to leave the entire support network behind, to come to a country where more often than not, where the language is different, where the culture is significantly different. You are literally you don't have literally in more often than not
but
just by yourself.
The land of opportunity.
That's right, and that is the reason that I said that when, generally speaking, migrants moves into the country, they actually come here for a better quality life. In Australia, where else you want to be when it comes to searching for a better quality life for yourself and for your loved ones than possibly the greatest country on earth, which is Australia. And from that point of view, so when it comes to taking those opportunities and taking your life to the next stage, I think this particular place probably offers you, and I'm telling you because I've been living here and I know and I've personally experienced all those things. So this place, because this is like the place itself is growing, so is Australia growing as a country, and this place being one of the small town, one of the smaller towns, and looking at the growth and exponential activities that are happening here, I can certainly state that being a migrant, if you're someone who is searching for better quality life, looking for better opportunities in terms of jobs, in terms of setting up businesses, and so on and so forth, I think this has to be one of the places for you to come and visit, and the list that you should do for yourself and for your family.
Talking about Australian Federation College,
right?
AFC, what I could see, the passion in your eyes, that fire of dreaming big and achieving big that you have achieved by setting up a college,
right.
The first ever private RTO in Launceston.
Right.
What courses do we run at AFC?
Okay, thank you. And the courses, so again, as I said earlier, is that we are a relatively newly registered RTO. Every courses that we intend to have on our scope, behind the scene, there are a lot of work and
what
at
do we
times
have now at the moment?
months of works. So at this point in time, we have certificate for in commercial cookery. We have, which is a great course. I can talk about it for ages. Hands-on thing.
Yep.
We have diploma of hospitality management. We have diploma of leadership. We got advanced diploma of leadership. We have advanced diploma of IT, so these are the courses that we have. And behind the scene, we are also working on some really exciting courses, namely community services and some graduate diploma courses and things.
So where
like
do we see AFC in 10 years from now?
In 10 years, I owned another RTO before. and I can tell you is that, and that's what we are a young team generally, though we have wealth of experience combining. I think all of us.
I think the directors are yourself.
Yep,
and Shafi Makhar.
Yep.
And Sagar.
Sagar and
Right.
And Hussain, and we have. So generally speaking,
Where do we see in 10 years?
in 10 years, not even 10 years, I think the one of the things that I say to my colleagues and my associates is that, look, in life, you got to do whatever that you do to excel. You got to be different, and when it comes to being different, you got to whatever that you do, you got to do it exceptionally well. And that's big or small, that's a relative term. I mean, someone might say, well, I've got 5,000 students and we're a big RTO. Someone else might say, well, 5,000 students, I'm miles ahead of you. So that's irrespective. What we see ourselves in 5 years is that we want to be known as an RTO that provides quality, skills-driven qualifications to our students in the most supportive, individualized, and in a very sort of sensitive support mechanism having in place towards our students.
Me, as an international student, just
Yeah.
completed my year 12, wanting to come to Australia,
Yeah.
looking at different options, I said,
Yeah.
okay, Launceston is one option.
Yeah.
Why should I pick AFC?
Well, first of all, because we're the only one. Apart from that, I think, as I said initially, Launceston, if you're an international student looking at study options in Australia, I tell you, if you have considered Australia in the first place, I think you have actually given yourself a big tick of doing the right thing, because Australia itself is a great country to come. And then by chance, for instance, if you also look at Launceston, I think now the tick has gone so much bigger that you don't have to look behind. Now, and then considering, for instance, Australian Federation College, as I said, we have qualifications that we have qualifications. These are industry-driven qualifications. We don't necessarily just go ahead and have qualifications for the sake of having it. We have qualifications that we take feedback from the industry bodies, and then we feed those feedbacks into the sort of adding of qualifications and so on our scope. So if you're coming here, there's a good chance that the qualifications that we have, and generally if these are in line with your interest, I think you do a pretty good job. Number two, AFC, as I told you, is that we are an individually. It's a privately owned RTO, Cricos provider in Australia. And the reason that I want to emphasize on that particular factor, privately owned, and in that sense what it actually means, and particularly to us, is that everything that we do, students and the quality of their education and their well-being stays at the forefront of pretty much every activities that we do. So if you're an international student coming to study with us, we can guarantee that you are not just going to be dealt as just being a number, 1 out of 100, or 1 out of 500, 1 out of 1,000. If you come and be involved with us, we are always going to treat you and deal you as being a single, an individual who would have their individual aspirations, who would have their individual needs and expectations, and we endeavor to do our best to make sure that we address each, no matter how difficult these are, we try to address each and every single aspirations and sort of goals and needs and support that you might have to be able to sort of look after you.
The final concluding question, what's on your wish list?
Thank you. Plenty of things. Well, it's kind of difficult to sort of say it in one sentence, but I would be as being part of this particular school, probably would like to create a legacy whereby students being part of it, and hopefully finishing their qualifications. I wish that at some point in time, people or our students would completing these things, and maybe in 5 years' time, maybe in 10 years' time, they would look back and say, "Well, I was fortunate enough, I was lucky enough to be part of that particular school, and as a result of my involvement with this particular school, my life has actually gotten better, not worse."
आज हमने की ऑस्ट्रेलियन फेडरेशन कॉलेज के सीईओ सोहेल राणा से बातचीत, और मैं आपका नवनीत। सोहेल जी, थैंक यू सो मच।
Thank you very much, Sergi. Lovely to meet you.
One-stop answer to your Australian education and visa matters. Gemco Sydney. Dream big, achieve big.